undisclosed location for no, it's just for a moment. Dan and I will be driving today. Hopefully we do well. Mark's book is prominently displayed behind Dan, just in case you miss him that much. We're going to run through what's going on today, then get to your questions. I'll play the role of Mark off the bat. The vice president's first public event at 7:30 continues to amaze me. She will be doing an event on the Ellipse. We will discuss that in just a moment. Donald Trump is meeting the media at Mar-a-Lago. Then he is holding a rally in Allentown, Pennsylvania. We will discuss that with respect to the Puerto Rico event in just a minute. Tim Walz is in Georgia, Savannah in Georgia. Vice J.D. Vance will be in Saginaw, Michigan. Joe Biden in Baltimore, Maryland, handling the swing state of Maryland for the campaign. Bill Clinton is in Pennsylvania. And there's a bunch of Trump surrogates doing bus tours throughout battleground states. Also of note, we discussed briefly yesterday, New Hampshire. There was a Trump post that said that he would be at New Hampshire this Saturday. What made it a little odd was that it was at 1:15 a.m. So I think that something's up with that. I think we will see. I mean, look, it's Trump. It's very possible you're going to have a 1:15 a.m. Saturday event. You know, they want to get through Saturday Night Live and then watch it, have an event. But I think that was probably inadvertent. Before we get to some topics, a couple new ads out. Let's play the Trump ad first, and then we'll go right to a Harris ad.
Kamala backed Biden on everything. She was the deciding vote for his disastrous economic agenda. They raised taxes on the middle class, and prices soared. Kamala was in charge of his open border policies, giving welfare to illegals while Americans struggle, and their weakness invited wars. Now Kamala wants to double down on failure. It's time to turn the page on Joe and Kamala's failed agenda. President Trump fights for you. His strength kept us safe. Trump cut taxes for families. Prices were lower and the border secure. Now, President Trump can do it again.
And we are going to launch a new golden age of American success for the citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed.
Remember, Kamala broke it. President Trump will fix it.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
We'll fix it.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
All right, so that's a 60 there. Let's play the Harris ad, please.
What would a Trump second term look like? It's all laid out in his Project 2025 agenda. He'd let insurance companies deny coverage for pre-existing conditions, cut Social Security and Medicare, and give tax cuts to billionaires, while the middle class pays the price with lower income and higher costs. Because for Trump, it's all about getting unchecked power while you pay the price. Donald Trump, more unhinged, unstable, and unchecked.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Hey, Dan, before we get on to the other topics, any comments on the ads?
I mean, look, I think the Trump ad is a solid ad. I mean, it's hitting the sweet spot and the messaging that they have, up and down the ticket. I think from the Democratic standpoint, this is a little bit of the yin and the yang that they have right now, which is they're going after character and conduct, but they're also trying to go back to pocketbook issues because we know that's what voters want to hear. So, for the Harris campaign, it's a little bit of a cross-eyed move, and for Trump, it's right in the sweet spot.
Yeah, the thing that I thought was interesting about the Harris ad is the VO on that the male voice sounded very like it domineering. It didn't sound like, I think it should have been a woman's voice. It didn't. It kind of had a mixed. I don't know what demographic they were trying to hit there, but I think the message was interesting. But then they I don't know. I thought they've done a good job on most of their ads of trying to hit it. I just was intrigued by that pick. It's sort of distracting from the message, which I thought was interesting because I think most of their other ads have. At least I get where they're going on that. That one, I thought they missed the mark on that. All right. Joe Rogan put out an interesting tweet. A lot of Republicans tuned in. A lot of other people tuned into President Trump's 3-hour Joe Rogan interview. Rogan put out that there is still a possibility of Harris doing an interview. He sent a tweet out. They wanted him to travel and to limit it to an hour. He wants to do it in Austin. I mean, Dan, do you think there's any shot that this happens?
I think there is a shot that it happens. Frankly, I wish she had done this, not 60 Minutes. And I wish the party would be more focused on this than the Washington Post endorsement. But we'll see. I mean, if she's going to go to Houston for a campaign rally and you're trying to, move some men, and I don't know what Trump's is up to, 41 million, views. But time is of the essence, and time's
Yeah,
valuable.
the funny thing is, as much as an advocate I've been, I think I actually, I mean, again, I try to be careful what I would, if she did that, I would be shocked, and I'll tune in because I'm not sure that's the right venue for her. I think getting men is one thing. They both have gender gap issues, but that I don't think would end up well for her. So I would be shocked on that. All right, let's just get to the ellipse before we get to the polling ellipse in Puerto Rico. I sort of am going to be really intrigued about the message tonight. She's doing this on the ellipse, the spot of January 6th, but then trying to say, but what are you talking about? This doesn't really have anything to do with January 6th. I'm intrigued by what they're hoping to get tonight, because it's like, we want you to think about January 6th, but we're telling you we're probably not going to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's the most powerful symbolism that there is for her message of we're not going backwards. I mean, people have asked on this forum, what does that mean? We're not going backwards. And the campaign kind of offers like 10 different things that they don't want to go back to. But January 6th is the ultimate symbol. For 80% of this country, it was a pretty dark moment. It was probably the lowest chapter in Trump's first term. And I think, on some level, no matter what she says, whether you kind of turn the volume off, they're hoping that it just, puts in the back of your mind, oi, do we really want to go back to this guy and risk another moment like this? Don't know if that will be successful, but I think
the headline tomorrow is going to be, she held an event at the same location. I mean, that's
it.
So they want that. That's what they want.
Correct.
Okay.
And then I think, look, to your point, they want to talk about the economy and other stuff because they don't want it to be the only thing you're focused on is January 6th. But I think there's no mistaking the message that they want there.
So I will be interested if they jump the shark tonight. I think there's a possibility they go too far with the rhetoric in terms of whether it's appealing or whether it's too far. Because again, my view has been, if you think January 6th and democracy are an issue, then you're voting for Harris. If those are your issues, I don't think that there's a ton of people who are saying, remind me what happened on January 6th. Tell me about this guy, Trump.
No, but I think what they're saying is like, look, you're going to the ballot box today or in a few days. It's gut check time. Like, here is where it happened, right? The last time or a few days before he left office, this was the culmination of all the chaos, of all the, half-truths, if you want to be charitable, if not outright lies. And people, do you really want this again? And I think for that is how they're trying to boil this down. It is that simple.
So we're going to get to Puerto Rico in a second before we take questions. You saw the fallout from a surrogate, right? That happened with Trump. The question is, how concerned would you be if you're the Harris campaign today that some surrogate says something today about this event that goes too far, a la deplorables, Nazis, whatever, calls Trump people names and distract? I mean, to me, this event is a high wire act where you're basically hoping everybody stays completely on message, because one step off 7 days out could be, a big problem. And again, it's just distracting from where you want to be headed.
Look, anytime you are referencing Nazis in politics, you are half an inch from going over the line. And I think this is going to be an issue today and down the home stretch. I mean, I think, my former boss, Hillary Clinton, kind of probably went over the line when she talked about the Nazi rally in MSG, because for several hours, if not 24 hours, like that was in the story. And it's not the best messenger when you're trying to win over soft Republicans. And so, yes, this is going to be for both campaigns who are teetering near the edge with the other will destroy the soul of this country. You got to be careful.
Yeah. All right, let's talk. I got to be honest. I woke up this morning and I'm reading about this continued fallout from Puerto Rico. The Trump campaign denounced to me that we talked about this yesterday. We don't need to replay that. But I've got to be, I mean, I literally be, CNN, the Today Show, as I'm flicking around, are having panel discussions about this comedian who's denouncing him. He's going to Allentown, Pennsylvania today, heart of a Puerto Rican community there. I mean, for a surrogate comment that was denounced by a comedian 4 hours before he spoke, I've never seen anything get as much play in this way. I mean, I'll just make my asterisk. This is my media concern, just so we don't have to hear it. But this is unbelievable. I mean, I see a lot of folks on the right pointing out, was it George Lopez made a comment over the weekend about Mexicans? That didn't get any play. I mean, this is, to me, the media basically saying we've got to put our foot on the pedal for Harris 7 days out, and we're going to keep going.
Well, look, I think some of this outrage is completely organic. And I think, it's an issue based on the reaction of Republicans, whether it's, the folks down in Florida, what's his name was running the Trump campaign in Pennsylvania, who immediately came out. Trump himself, Dave Urban, Trump himself has been quiet, right? And I mean, JD Vance kind of tried to pivot a little bit by saying, we don't support the comment, but hey, he's a comedian. He's not an official part of the campaign. Like, just the Trump response tells you everything you need to know. I imagine when he meets the media today, he's going to address this. He'll address it again in Allentown. And I think, given it's a game of inches, given that Trump has been largely successful to date, increasing his support with Latinos, increasing his support with Blacks, and we'll get to that in a second, anything that could shift this back could be a problem. And I think for Democrats, I happen to know, we had a house guest this weekend who lives in Puerto Rico, is very involved in Puerto Rican politics. She got a phone call from the Harris people on Saturday morning. Hey, we're going to come out and say some things to try to help with their get votes with Puerto Ricans in Pennsylvania. And so the Harris campaign was already teed up on this issue when the comedian just stepped into it. And so I think, look, there is organic outrage. As I said yesterday, you have a lot of kind of Puerto Rican celebrities who never get involved in politics, ever, who are just mad. It goes back to the hurricane, et cetera. So are Democrats jumping on this? And as you say, our friends in the media helping us? Absolutely. But it is a problem. And I just look at the reaction of the Trump campaign and the candidate himself to tell you that there's something there.
The thing that's interesting to me, I mean, we could spend the rest of the show just talking about this, because I feel like, just knowing, like, I've heard a lot of internal discussions about, how the campaign made the decision that they did to go out and address this. Trump is going to get asked about this today. There's no question. He's got this media avail at Mar-a-Lago. There is no way that I can see where he says, yeah, I'm sorry, whatever. He's going to, I think it's going to be I'm actually intrigued to see, does he come down more JD Vance? And by the way, and Jon Stewart, and I know somebody just noted that in the chat. People were texting me last night. Check out what Jon Stewart said. Hey, the guy's a comedian. Like, everyone needs to chill a little. But at the same time, I don't see Trump coming out ever and saying, I apologize for this. Like, that's not Trump. If you think that's going to happen, you're nuts. My guess is he comes down a little bit more JD Vance. This is a comedian making a joke and saying, and I didn't know anything about it. I didn't even hear it. But whether that means that we have day 3 of this, we'll see. But I've never seen a surrogate who, I mean, again, it's not even just a surrogate. It's a comedian. When I found out that he did Tom Brady's roast, then I was like, I went back to my comment from yesterday. I'm like, okay, if you watched Tom Brady's roast, why would you put that guy on stage? Like, you kind of knew what you're getting if you watched the Brady roast. And if you haven't watched it, please don't do it with kids in the room. All right. The last thing, there's some polling out that I think probably makes the Harris campaign. I mean, that not necessarily the state and the national polling, but I know there's some demographic polling that probably is what you're going to hear the Harris campaign hang their hat on today.
Yeah, I mean, I think I tweeted it out this morning. Over the weekend, there was a Washington or ABC News poll that showed Harris getting slightly better support from the Black community than Biden got in 2020. There's an NAACP poll out overnight that shows that Harris's support with Black men 50 and under is improving. I know a lot of people are saying, look, if you take the sample size and kind of narrow it down, it's a small subset. It's not a huge movement. But look, in a game of inches, if Trump were to get 22% of the black vote versus 25% of the black vote in states like Georgia and Pennsylvania, like that could be material. And so I think, in fairness to everyone who got excited at the same polls in April, July, and September that showed Trump doing well, we need to be eyes open that perhaps the black vote, young black men in particular, are starting to come back to the Democratic Party, who has put a huge focus on this the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, the thing that's interesting about the poll, obviously national poll, and to your point, this is all about where they turn out. If you get black men turning it out in New York and LA, okay, who cares, right? They're turning out in Georgia, but for Trump, that's a problem for them. I mean, so where is going to matter? And I think that's important. All right, I want to call on some folks. I'm going to try to get some folks in that haven't called on before. Frank, I think it's from Wisconsin, reluctant. I can't see the whole thing. So if we can bring Frank in first, tell me what you're reluctant, because I can't. Oh, reluctant Trump voter. Okay, go ahead, Frank. Welcome. Why are you reluctant Trump voter, and how did you vote in 2016, 2020?
Oh, you're muted, Frank.
Oh, Frank, sorry, you're muted.
How's that?
Perfect.
How's that? So 2016, I voted Trump reluctantly, but because of the Supreme Court. 2020, I voted Trump reluctantly. And in 2024, just yesterday, I voted Trump reluctantly. I voted for Nikki Haley in the primary. I didn't vote for Trump in the primary in 2016. 2020 wasn't. I don't even think I voted at the primary. I've won. And Dan said yesterday that the Trump voters are voting all about policy. And I think that's right. It's all about substance. It's not style. It's not character. It's substance. My wife and I and a couple of friends of ours just got back from the UK and Ireland. We were there for our 40th wedding anniversary. And we were able to watch the morning meeting in the afternoon and the 2-8 tonight in the morning, which was great. We did not find a cabbie in London or in Edinburgh or in Dublin, a native cabbie who was not following this and was not a Trump supporter, which is just an interesting anecdote. I have a question.
What was there? Why did they give you a reason?
Yeah, they said the world was better when Trump was president. They all said he's crazy, but they believe the world, didn't know how to deal with him, which is helpful. And one of the cabbies thought that the vice president, just because of how she answers questions, was an embarrassment to the country, which when you're on foreign soil, you don't like to hear that about anybody, right? So it was an interesting time. I got on the show once before and I asked this question: do you guys, the insiders, know who's going to win next week? And we got interesting answers. The reason why I'm bringing it up again is, as I listen to you all, it's, the momentum seems to be with Trump. The polling trend seems to be with Trump, but maybe there's this huge female vote that's going to come out and kind of do to 2024 what happened in 2022. And connected to that, we've been a religious Morning Joe watchers for years. The show now versus 6 or 7 years ago is completely different, but we still watch it. And I'm really concerned that MSNBC and Morning Joe is doing a disservice to the country because they don't carry one negative story about Kamala Harris. They don't carry one negative comment. They don't carry one negative meme or anecdote. Now, in fairness, Joe Scarborough says he's confident, or that no one knows what's going to happen. He keeps saying it's tight, it's tie. I don't know what's going to happen. So maybe that's his out. But with with not showing the other side, I'm concerned that the country is really gonna not be the two-way platform, peace, love, and understanding, and we're gonna have problems, whoever wins, but especially if the former president wins next week. And I interested in your comments. It's really about the media. I'm concerned that there's a lot of gaslighting going on, maybe on both sides, and that doesn't help any of us.
Dan?
Yeah, I think both sides at this point will have a hard time recognizing the other if they win. Like, not that they're legitimate, but I think the Trump world, and Sean can speak to this better than I can, is supremely confident that they are going to win. To your point, trend lines, momentum, public polling now is starting to reflect, I think, what the private polls have shown. I don't think I've seen a poll out of Wisconsin that shows Harris in the lead now in the last 10 or maybe week. It's all
Right.
Trump +1 type. Look, it's going to be an issue. I hope Harris wins. I hear from a lot of people who watch this show on the Democratic side that, I'm a disgrace for basically not coming on here and pounding the table that, she's going to win. And there's going to be hurt feelings and depression on both sides, or I'm sorry, whichever side loses. It just is.
Yeah, and Frank, first of all, thank you for being here and being so
Yep.
dedicated that you watched in Europe. Happy anniversary. Congratulations on 40 years. Look, I think that's the uniqueness of this platform, not to get on a soapbox, but we're self-selecting as a country where we get our news, right? And I think that's what's by the way, that's what's amazing about America. You want to talk to people on the right and you want to hear them, you want to talk to folks on the left, you go listen to MSNBC. But I think that's what makes this platform great, and why so many people, you look at the people that are engaging every day, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, because I think people want to see this kind of discussion. They want to hear it. And to Dan's point, we both get crapped on a little bit when we're giving analysis. I'll get the feedback. I know Dan gets plenty of it, where it says, why did you say something nice about her? We're trying to inform you. Here's what they're doing well. Here's what I said. But it's like listening to a football game when they do commentary in between. They're not rooting for a team. They're explaining to you why the player did this or what's going on in the huddle or something. I mean, that's the idea, is to bring you inside the game a little bit more. And I think what Dan and myself and Mark, through all of his sources, is bring you inside the game a little bit more, to explain why campaigns are making the decisions they are. And that's the point. Nowhere else can you find this. And it's not to be selfish here, but there's no, some shows are giving, I do my own show, Mark does it too, but this is the only one where you can see the three of us every day give everybody's perspective. And that's why we're so excited that it's the audience and the participation has grown. So thank you for participating and being so loyal and dedicated.
I have one more just question or comment. Early in this cycle, especially in the evening shows, well, I guess because he's on TV then, Joe Scarborough was coming on the platform and taking questions from Mark and from people on the platform, and he hasn't been around in 2 months now. And maybe that's because he couldn't do this platform in light of what's going on over at in the kind of the big media. But it would be interesting to have him back on. I think it would be helpful to the country, frankly, to hear maybe some unvarnished commentary from Joe, because I don't think he's very smart politically.
Okay. Well, I'll see if Mark can reach out. I will say you brought up a good point, which is a lot of folks on cable have restrictions about what they can and cannot do on other platforms. But obviously, Mark's got great connections, and hopefully he can weave that. So thank you for being with us. Chrissy, come on in. Tell us who you're voting for there in Buffalo. Is that your house? It looks fantastic. I mean, that's quite the basement, or I'm not really sure. And even as I can't root for the Bills, but I can at least admire how well you've done that. Oh, you're muted.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Hi. Good morning. Yeah. So I'm outside of Rochester, but close enough to Buffalo. And yes, it is our basement. We love it. So I voted for Trump on Saturday. I am a little bit of feel like a stranger in a strange land here in New York. My neighborhood has kind of gone crazy with I have to just say hate. I mean, there have been so many just terrible, terrible comments about, how could people vote for Trump? And I really feel like it's tearing the fabric of, my neighborhood apart. I mean, it's been tough. So Dan, I guess my question would be for you is, how, as a conservative Republican, how do I deal with people who not how do I deal with, but what do they want to hear from me? Because I feel like they just don't
there's
want me
two
to
separate questions.
exist.
What do they want to hear from you, and what maybe? Look, as you may have realized or seen from how I speak on this show, my advice is just try to get them to respect why you're making the decision you are. I mean, I think unfortunately for a lot of Democrats, they look at Trump voters and say, you're stupid. How could you do this? It's against your interests. Like, if you only opened your eyes and saw the light, you would see that we are right and you are wrong. And I think I always try to say to people, walk in the shoes or look through the eyes of the other person. And you may not agree with why they're voting, but at least have an understanding and a respect that for everyone makes their decisions for their own individual reasons. And, I think for you, it's even harder because for a lot of Democrats, seeing a woman, they say choice should be your overriding issue, full stop. And how could anything else be an issue? So I would just say, speak respectfully, agree to disagree is how I try to disarm people sometimes, but no doubt passion is extraordinarily high right now. And a lot of people on both sides just simply cannot see how somebody could vote for the other person.
Yeah. And we have Prop 1 going on in New York, which has also, taken it to a new level. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about it. The proposition is very vague, and so people are interpreting it in whatever way suits their beliefs. And
I mean, it's an issue. Look, I'm in Manhattan. I will be voting for Kamala Harris. But when I see people socially or, just out and about who bring up this election, if they're voting for Trump, it's always a shh, like, they look around like they're going to get jumped in Central Park if they say, I'm voting for Trump. So I always say, good for you. Like, vote for, whoever you think's best.
Thanks, Chrissy. Appreciate you joining us. I don't think there's any question by the T-shirt. Your Nicholas Chin.
All right, I got to get one of those.
I'll go through the motion, sir.
Yes, exactly.
Who are you voting for?
Who am I voting for? Can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir. Where are you? Where are you?
I am right now I'm in New York City, but I'm from Albany. So just like the woman from Rochester, I'm on the other side of this upstate New York region in Albany. I voted for Kamala Harris on Saturday. I was very proud to vote for her. I'm actually very excited to be on this platform. I've been watching Two-Way for months since it started. So I'm very excited. And I actually do like you, Sean. I didn't like you in the Trump administration, but I do like you better now. And I guess my concern is I have a best friend who is a Trump supporter. So I respect Trump supporters. I am very weary if he wins. I am a little scared if he wins. I'll be honest with you. I don't think the fascist argument works, although I do think he has some authoritarian tendencies, to be honest with you. And I guess my question to Dan is, I think it was very bleak the last couple of weeks for the Harris campaign, but I feel more energized now. I mean, I think as a young Black man that is supporting Trump, I don't see this wave of young Black men to the former president. She's still seen as the candidate of change in many polls. And what happened at MSG really, really concerned me because I think the comments on Puerto Rico from his surrogate is that they were vetted to me. Like, the comments were vetted. Like, it was even reported that he wanted to call this comedian wanted to call the vice president the C word, and that was taken out. So it was vetted. So and President Trump came out 4 hours later and has not said anything. So I guess my questions are twofold. Dan, do you see this in optimism about the Harris campaign that we are in much better shape that is being portrayed? And then my question for you, Sean, is if President Trump wins, because I'm much prepared for his victory, right? I recently gave up alcohol, but that might test my resolve next week, Tuesday. But I'm prepared if President Trump wins because we have to survive, right? I think the country will not, devolve if he wins, but I would like your advice to Harris supporters like me, should he win, to give us some resolve that he is going to listen to the voices of millions of Americans, most likely the popular vote. I think Kamala Harris will win the popular vote, that he will be a president for all Americans. Because I think Kamala Harris will be president for all Americans, which is why I'm voting for her. But I'm scared President Trump will not be.
Well, first off, thank you for coming on. That was absolutely awesome. I would say anyone who plays in the stock market, I would be long alcohol distributors next week. I think it'll be a good time to be selling wine and spirits and beer. Look, I think there are some reasons to be optimistic. You're right. I mean, look, I have taken no joy the last few weeks in speaking honestly that Harris has been struggling. To go to what Sean said earlier, I think one of the beauties of this platform is we are relatively honest here. And you hear stuff here that you then see in the mainstream media a couple of days later, if not a week later, right? So 2 or 3 weeks later or earlier, when we were saying Harris is having some trouble, then you started seeing reports that, in the New York Times and other things. Look, Harris is not down 5 or 10 points. I think where the kind of concern has come is the trend lines. So take Wisconsin to Michigan. From August through the end of September, Harris was up kind of 3 to 4 points. It's margin of error, it's close, but it was pretty consistent. And then it kind of went down to 2 to 3, 1 to 2, tied, let's say +1, right? Pennsylvania, I think there's a similar feeling. So the issue is we're 7 days out, is the momentum, polls are a snapshot in the rearview mirror, right? You try to anticipate where that puck is kind of going. And I think in the Sun Belt states, the good news is she's kind of hung around the rim. I'm mixing sports metaphors here, where she's been kind of down 1 to 2 points. But now with 6 days left, the question is, how do you get that last 1 or 2 points? The optimistic case is, I do think, as I forget what's her name last night on 2A, and if you haven't seen it, highly recommend you go listen to it. There is precedent recently that women have turned out at a significantly higher rate, and that they, are not communicating to pollsters who they're going to vote for, whether it's social pressure that they live in a neighborhood that's pretty for Trump, perhaps other family members are for Trump and they don't want to say it. If you look at those abortion ballot initiatives, the results have not matched the polling expectations going in. The pro-abortion vote has been significantly higher than public polls had indicated going in. I do think the Harris campaign has kind of, stopped muddling around and just gone all in on the anti-Trump message. I'm still somewhat pessimistic, but would it surprise me if she wins? Absolutely not. I think she still is just ever so slightly, trailing in those states, but in 16, I felt pretty good about Hillary Clinton.
I would just say, look, I think that one of the things that's really unique right now is that all 7 battleground states, I feel very good, right? But I will tell you, they're all in the margin of error. So whatever side, well, for my side, I get some of the Trump people I've talked to are getting a little exuberant. I would say, put your foot on the pedal. Let's keep driving for 7 days. The one, but I will say that this has the potential to be very close. I believe that we will have a big victory on our side, based on the data that I'm seeing and the trend lines that are moving in our direction. When you see states like New Hampshire, we had a poll out this morning, shows Virginia within 2. I mean, you don't get that if the trend isn't working in your direction. So I feel very good. I think the message the Harris people are putting out is, hey guys, we're in this, we're maybe down by a touchdown in the 4th quarter, but we got to keep playing. And I would say that to our side, we're not up by enough to get cocky. So let's keep it going. But Nicholas, thank you for being a passionate advocate your side, for getting out here and having and the way that you're approaching your best friend is really cool. So thank you. We need more of that. And I appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us. Mallory, you are new to the platform or to the discussion. Thank you for coming in.
Yes.
Where are you?
So I'm in South Carolina. So my vote as an independent doesn't necessarily matter that much because my state's going to go Trump. But I find myself in kind of a weird situation because I am a lifelong Republican. I cannot stomach Trump. This is my third cycle of voting Democrat because I left the party when he became the nominee because he's just not my cup of tea. My husband feels the same way. Most of our family left. I have a lot of friends who feel the same way. I'm the suburban mom. I'm a stay-at-home mom voter who I feel like, from what I'm hearing on this platform and the news in general, that my vote is the vote that everybody is fighting for. But I can't help but feel like both political parties are in a major crisis because on the left, for 3 cycles, I feel like the platform has been, we're not Trump. And on the right, there have been some decent policy ideas that maybe I don't disagree with, but I cannot stomach the mouthpiece. I can't stomach the candidate. So I'm voting against maybe what I would prefer policy-wise because I can't imagine handing nuclear codes to this person. Like, I just really don't trust him. And I don't understand why the political parties are not actually trying to win the votes of the independents. I feel like the base is going to stay. The left is going to stay left. They're not voting Republican. The Republicans that are base are going to stay. But instead, I'm seeing these political parties pandering to issues that just don't really appeal to the middle. And I feel very torn about all of it. And I have a political background. I worked on Lindsey Graham's campaigns. I interned with him in Washington. I worked in government most of my career until I became a stay-at-home mom. I have a master in public administration. I'm quintessentially typically going to vote Democrat, but I wasn't that person before Trump.
So if is there somebody, you said that your vote is up for grabs. Is there something or someone that could pull you over the top? Either way.
No, for Trump,
so there's no one. Nikki Haley. If Nikki Haley,
yes. If it was Nikki Haley,
but if Nikki Haley comes out today or tomorrow and says, "I get it, South Carolinians, you may not like him. I appreciate all your support as governor. I need you to do this for me." Does that matter to you?
No.
Okay.
No.
And does January 6th resonate with you? I mean, the Harris campaign's kind of closing argument of reminding you of what you clearly don't like. Does that strike up?
So she never really had to, okay, and I'll say this. I don't think she's a good candidate. I don't really like her. Mostly because I don't think she's got a platform. I think the Democrats fumbled. The fact that nobody saw that Biden was failing, they should have pulled him out in year 2, put her in, let her be president for 2 years, then run her down the line. The fact that they waited till July and August to put her in, to me, was a great disservice to her. But I was always going to probably vote for her because I can't do Trump. But January 6th resonated with me very deeply. I love history and politics. Love it. I breathe it. I majored in it. I thought I'd be on the hill my whole life, but I got married and life changed. I had to change. So January 6th happened and I'm in my living room sobbing. The Capitol is so stunning. It's beautiful. I'm watching people smashing windows. This to me was just detrimental. And I can't believe more Americans weren't so outraged by that. And that's maybe part of why, but before then, I was still a very anti-Trump. I've always been very anti-Trump. When he was a primary candidate, I was a Jeb Bush supporter. I just never could stomach him and never understood. I also lived in West Palm Beach. I worked for Palm Beach County. People in West Palm Beach have lots of stories about the things that Donald Trump did that were just really crappy. And so before he was ever even a candidate, I had a distaste for him. I was in the junior league and I didn't want to go volunteer and do events at Mar-a-Lago because I just didn't like him as a person. So for me, there was never a chance, unless we're running against Vladimir Putin. For me, it would have to be somebody really extreme. But I just don't understand why.
So Mallory, if it were any other Republican, would you default to back to voting Republican? Is it just a Trump thing?
It's the Trump thing. It would be a bigger decision for me. For me, as a woman, I am very tied just to the abortion issue because my husband's a physician. And the way that he said to me is, he said, look, I can look at a patient and say, 3 days from now, they're septic. Am I allowed to intervene to save that woman's life? Or do I have to wait till she's on death's door? And that for him is problematic. And that for me too, I think to myself, golly, if my husband's in the hospital and needs to save somebody's life, in South Carolina, the rules are kind of crazy, and it could be a felony to save someone's life because they weren't close enough to death and that sort of thing. So for me, abortion was, until Roe v. Wade was overturned, yes, that would have been it. But now it's very tight for me because of abortion and honestly, common sense gun laws. I'm not talking about AR bans, but like, I just feel like the policies are so far left and so far right, but the common sense, middle of the road things that most Americans think, if you have an ectopic pregnancy, it should be easy to get the drug that you need. It should be easy to close loopholes like the Charleston loophole that led to the AME shooting in Charleston. Like, there are so many common sense things that I don't feel like our government's focusing on. The right is really pandering to the far right, and the left is really pandering to the far left. And I feel like all of us are in the middle, and they're like, your vote matters the most. You're going to tip the election, but we're not going to do anything to cater to what you people think. It's frustrating.
Yeah. Mallory, thank you for sharing this with us. It's very insightful. Appreciate you being with us, and hope you come back. Thanks for being part of the discussion every morning. All right, I want to bring in Ryan. Ryan, where are you and who are you voting for?
Good morning. I'm in Colorado. I have already voted for Trump. My wife also voted for Trump, very reluctantly. It's an easier path for me to get to because of policy. Like his mannerisms, his rhetoric just turns her off so bad. And she still voted for him. And thanks for bringing me on here. I've been watching you on YouTube, and this is my first Zoom meeting, so I was surprised to get in here. So thank you for that. Thank you for helping people understand each other through this. There's so many people I talk to that say, I don't understand how they could vote for, and on both sides. And it troubles me because people don't take the time to listen to one another and try to understand each other. And 20 years ago, I would have been the guy saying, maturity has helped me in that way. The rhetoric's too hot, the gaslighting, the hyperbole, it's horrible on both sides. Don't like either one. I feel bad for those that are scared of a Trump presidency. I like to hear people on here that they have this fear. It's so palpable. I feel bad for them. The reason I voted for Trump is because of policy. I have a 9-year-old daughter, and people say, well, how can't you vote for Kamala to protect her reproductive rights? We have a strong faith. We believe that child in the womb is a child. It's a creation. We strongly support life. People don't get that. I wish, I don't understand the other side. I try to. I don't understand the difference between how we see things. But so I look at, women's sports, having that protection, crime, her protection, just all these things. How am I going to protect my daughter growing up? And I choose Trump because of that, while other people choose Kamala because of that. My question this morning is, people say, Trump's going to go after his political opponents. He's going to do this. He's going to do Project 2025. And it's all it's rhetoric. And I think they're going over the top. He's Hitler for being at Madison Square Garden. That's just BS. And we know it. The people on the left that are spouting that, I think they know it. It's just trying to win. During the 2016 campaign, and I voted Johnson 2016, I voted Trump 2020, and Trump again this year. Trump's rallies were lock her up, lock her up, lock her up, crooked Hillary, just vitriol against Hillary the whole time. His supporters were that way. And when Hillary conceded, I watched his speech right after that again, and he said something to the effect of, had a nice conversation with her. We owe her a debt of gratitude for her service to this nation. Like it was like a switch. He switched over to being cordial. Sean, especially for you, because you've been around him. Is that how he really is? Like he's going to talk just fire and hate and vitriol while he's in the battle. And as soon as he's won, can he really turn it off? I can't do that. When I'm like, if I hate somebody, I hate somebody, right? But I can't just turn it off. But it seems like he can almost do that. Is that an accurate read on Trump?
Yeah. I mean, I've never seen anyone in my life compartmentalize like Donald Trump. He can literally be furious at something. Me, somebody else.
Okay.
And then literally within 60 seconds, by the way, great job on that event that yesterday. And and you're like, what just happened? You can tell him the worst thing in the world that just happened, and he goes through whatever, and then say, by the way, the event starts in 30 seconds. There's a room full of people in the next room. He's like, okay. He has this ability to compartmentalize events and issues in a way that I've never seen anybody do in my life. So the answer is yes. I will say this to the broader point, and this is something that, without getting too much into it, when Hillary Clinton called and conceded to him, she was very gracious from what I understand. I wasn't on the call. And so he went out and returned that. Trump is a very transactional guy. If you call him and say, you did a great job, thank you, he'll get out there and say, I just talked to Ryan. He called me and said really great things, and I think he's doing a great job down in Colorado for blah, blah, blah. If you call and put out a tweet that said you're the most horrible person in the world, he's going to say, you're the most horrible person in the world. I mean, it's somewhat predictable, but so if you hit him, he's going to hit back. This goes back to the question that was asked just a moment ago. If you saw the first 4 years, that's what you're going to get the next one. If you didn't really like that, then that's unfortunate. I mean, that's what you're going to get. The second movie is just like the first.
One thing I think that's remarkable about Trump is he's so honest in that he has said, if you're my opponent, I hate you. You have to be tough. I got to knock them around, right? So 1 minute, Ted Cruz's father apparently killed JFK. The next minute, he and Ted Cruz are buddies, right? And he is famous for this. He is just the alpha dog who always has to be winning and punching and knocking his opponents out. And then to Sean's point, he'll just turn around and, act like nothing happened on some level. And, there have been plenty of politicians that, do similar things. Campaigns are not for the, faint of heart. And I happen to be with you. I don't think he's a terrible person. I get politics. I've seen a lot in my career. I've worked for a Clinton, a Pelosi, a Kennedy. It's rough and tumble. I mean, it just is. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. And, I have family members who think I'm a naive fool. So
any questions for me on my perspectives, or
just how is it like in Colorado? I mean, I can't imagine that there's a ton of your neighbors that are probably
okay. So
I don't know where, because I don't.
Yeah, Colorado.
Yeah,
so I'm in Southwest Colorado. So Southwest Colorado, small town, rural. But so
who's your member of Congress?
What? It has been Boebert.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're down.
Dumpster fire.
But she's moving.
She's moving, thankfully. So now it's Jeff Hurd and Adam Frisch again. So I'll have a sign in my yard for a local county commissioner that's Republican. I'll put his sign in my yard. I personally know him. I'll support him. I won't put a Trump sign in my yard. Around my neighborhood, it's probably 10-1 Harris signs to Trump signs. Not greatly political. There are little, in the town we're in, liberal, and then 10's liberal, and then in the outlying areas conservative. So I don't have, I'm in mortgages, so I don't talk with my clients. Politics of religion is off limits. But I do sit out in restaurants with my buddies, that we go out on Tuesday nights and have dinner, and we talk politics and craziness. But I hear from my own friends that say, I don't understand how they could vote. And then I try to say, well, try to think about it. They just have different priorities and we surround ourselves with our own echo chambers. If I listen to MSNBC and that's all I ever listen to, I would probably have a very different perspective of the world than I do. It would really
that's a great point. Yeah.
If I listen to Newsmax all day, I would have a completely, the two are oil and water. They just don't mix. And it's a shame that we're there. I did want to say one other thing about this transgender issue that really roused me up. My wife was a tomboy. So her personal experience is she wanted to be a boy. She thought they had all the fun. And in today's world, in some environments, she would be encouraged to say, oh, you can be a boy. You should be a boy. Let's get you on hormone blockers. Let's start this process for you. And she looks back at that and says, it's criminal what could happen to me as my type of person. And she's a beautiful woman and embraces her womanhood today. And she looks at that and just scares her what is being done to some of these kids and thinks it's criminal. And so that's the far left doing that. I don't think most people voting for Harris actually think that way, but that's a really animating thing in our family that we see.
Well, first off, I was chief of staff on Capitol Hill to your governor, so I think Colorado is a great state, Jared Polis. So I know your state a little bit.
I'm not a big fan.
Yeah. In fact, for those who cannot wait for 2024 to be over, some people are thinking about 2028 already, and I think that governor may be one of them.
Okay.
Look, I've said this on the show. I think this is a really complicated issue, and it hits nerves in so many different ways. It is not black and white.
Agreed.
It is a huge issue in New York City. I mean, a bastion of progressive people, because of this issue of sports and children who experiment in things. How do you talk to kids? What about single sex schools? Yeah, I mentioned this the other day. Who goes in what bathroom? Where do you change during PE? People aren't racist. They're just like, how do we do this? And who's talking to our children? And what are they hearing? And children are very susceptible to kind of maybe being cool and doing certain things. And so I think it's a very, very hard issue that I think society is wrestling with. And it's not black. When one side says, oh, you should go completely in one direction, I just don't think that's where the country is.
I agree. And I will say this. I think this is the one thing that I appreciate your comments on, and this was the other day, is that this is there are people that I think you and I share many of the same views on this issue, that we're trying to protect women and protect children, protect our daughters. And that doesn't mean that don't have compassion for people who are dealing with some kind of issue. I think part of this comes down to motive. I will say that one of the things that I have seen is that, to some of the comments in the chat, there are circumstances where you see a parent being told you must do the following, right? And maybe those are the extreme. I'm not here, but I get my point is that each side is grabbing onto things and saying, see, this is how we're going to demean the people on the right who I think, we're standing up and saying, hey, we think for our daughters and for women, this is why this is a problem. And then on the other side, they're saying, this is why you guys don't respect people who are dealing with problems. But I think there does need to be a more respectful discussion, because I think, like I said, I believe, as you do, that we need to be respectful of life, that we need to make sure that we don't do something to children at an early age that's going to come back to haunt them years later. So anyway, thank you for joining us and being out there. And so appreciate it. We've got a big week, obviously, as we head to the final days. I appreciate all you guys being with us. Please continue to tell your friends. This is, like I said at the outset, the only platform that I'm aware of where you can come and get this kind of information, but also this kind of discussion. So we encourage people in these final days to really know where they can get an insightful and honest discussion and a respectful discussion. Mark's away today for the morning meeting. He'll be back tomorrow, but that doesn't mean he's not going to be here tonight, airing early at 5 o'clock. That's right. He is Donald Trump and Kamala Harris at 5 o'clock. No, wait. I think I got that wrong. But he will be back for a two-way tonight at 5 o'clock, a special time, an hour early. So join Mark at 5, which means it's much easier to join me at 6 Trump political director James Blair is going to be on my show at 6. And I frankly, we talked a lot about trends. I really am interested to see if they are going to make any kind of significant investment in New Mexico, Minnesota, Virginia, this in New Hampshire. This to me, I think a lot going on. And then obviously we'll talk about, the rally and the fallout. So if you're interested in hearing what he has to say, 6 o'clock, Mark at 5, Sean at 6, Dan all day long on Twitter. Thank you guys for being with us. We'll be back tomorrow, same at this, always 9 o'clock. Two-way, 5 today, two-way tonight, Sean at 6. Thank you guys for being with us. We look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, guys.